Don Rory Laird, he looks like he should be right, is he?
Oh, look, he's available for selection. Yeah, we're probably conservative with him last week, but given the amount of A, footy he'd missed, and B, time he'd been off that toe, we just felt it was important to get another week of training, and so so he's available, which is good.
What about the Crouch brothers, of course, because there was no Sandford last week? Yeah. Where do you sit with those guys? Did they need a game last week?
Well, ideally, yeah, they would have been great to get a game. That didn't exist because of the way the draw is structured, but Matt's in line for selection. Look, Brad will play at Sandford level again this week. I had a discussion with him around what that looks like, and we're really clear, both him and us, in terms of the rebuild for him to get back into playing the AFL footy we know he's capable of, and it's exciting. So look, how long that takes, don't know, but we're hopeful it's going to be sooner rather than later, and his training form suggests, and he's now had a block of 5 weeks of training and playing, which is probably the longest period he's had for nearly 18 months. So that continuity is going to really help him, and I'd expect to be pushing up pretty quickly.
How tough is the match committee when you're coming off one of your best performances of the season and your Sandford side hasn't had a run?
Yeah. Well, it's difficult, and that's one of the things we've got to weigh up. And it's not only the fact they didn't play last week, but then we've had a bit of a interrupted program from a Sandford viewpoint. So we look back, and some guys have played 2 games in 5 weeks, which is not ideal. But we're fortunate that obviously the side played well last week. We'll assess what's the best balance and mix for this week's game.
So how good is match simulation these days at training? Is it good enough for you to be able to say, even if they haven't played a game, the training makes you confident to pick guys?
I always reckon good training form is good form regardless, and I think we've seen that. I know probably the last 3 weeks we've put a pretty heavy emphasis on not only our training but the quality of our training, and there's no real secret with guys who train well tend to play well. The match simulation side of it gives you an indication, but it only generally lasts for such a short period of time. It's always hard when you start a match sim drill and everyone's fresh and going. You don't actually get that full normal, the game sort of settling and rolling around. So, over a 10 to 12 minute period, you tend to work on a few things, but you don't get a full match sort of simulated in the players and the way they run.
I know you've got double digits as a coach. Is it easier to plan against a GWS because they've had a solid, consistent block, or more difficult against the St Kilda because it's going up and down all over the place? So how do you read a team like a St Kilda and plan for them?
Oh, they're the same as we do for GWS. I mean, we assess the opposition each week in terms of the games they've played, the style they play, their strengths, and try and highlight some of their weaknesses or areas we think we can get on top. So it doesn't change week to week regardless of the opposition.
Is St Kilda harder to read than a GWS?
Oh, I don't know if they're hard to read. I think the St Kilda's form. They probably had the one exception, which was the West Coast game recently at Subi, which was, I think Alan would be the first to suggest that his team didn't give him what he wanted on that day. But other than that, they nearly beat North Melbourne at Etihad about a month ago, and they've won their last 2. So they're a good, strong team emerging. And again, this competition is so even. We can't afford to think, well, we've got St Kilda this week. We've got to come and prepare and play our style and play our way against a quality opposition.
So what do you work on a St Kilda more than you would on another side? What focus do you have there?
I'm probably not going to go into the areas we're going to focus on with regard to St Kilda. But primarily we focus on how we play and we adapt how we play to the opposition. And you generally find that the adjustments you make are within the framework of how you play anyway. It's probably just some more emphasis on some points and some areas. For instance, this week, as an example, St Kilda really pride themselves on strong in the contest and their tackling and their pressure. So we just prepare the players to understand that's what they want to bring, and then we play accordingly.
Glad you brought up tackling. Where are you on this debate of players who drop the centre of gravity or drop their knees to win a free kick? Is that the sort of footy you want to see? Is that the spirit of the game? How do you feel about that debate? I'm
less concerned about the spirit of the game necessarily than more. I think the AFL's made a really good call in terms of protecting players and the heads of the players and making sure that contact, that area is sacrosanct. And I guess I prefer that players weren't using that to exploit free kicks because it's against the intent of that rule. It's probably where I see it.
So what do you do at training? Do you train? Some coaches are saying they actually train their players to get the free kick.
No, we haven't done anything specifically about training that. We've probably done more training to make sure we don't give away free kicks in terms of how low we can get in the tackle and bits and pieces. But look, it's an interesting one where I think that, as I said, I think the AFL rule to protect the head is great, and that's important for the long-term well-being of the players. So I think if we can tighten up a little bit, then players not using that to their advantage, that would be probably what I'd say.
So is there a bit of hypocrisy in the game then, that if coaches are asking their players to milk free kicks when we're trying to actually keep the game safe?
No real comment on that. I mean, I think I've said what I've said, in terms of how I saw the high free kick thing.
What about your last quarters? Are you drilling into those as to why they would be this year a non-win quarter for you?
What's the number? It's
4 wins, 6 losses.
in the last quarter.
Yeah.
Well, I've looked at it in some, not in significant detail, and there's reasons in every game. I mean, there's some games where we've actually won the last quarter and lost the game, so there's probably more some things around. I think the quarters I've looked at, in the last quarters I looked at, it's probably more around the contest. And as I've said all along, if you don't win your share at the contest, you're always going to be under pressure.
You spoke about Rory Laird being up for selection this week. What about David McKay? How's he looking? Is he up for selection, or will he go back and play in the twos?
Well, he's up for selection. He's come through his hamstring thing really well. Again, he was pushing last week, but we felt probably again to take an extra week, especially with hamstrings, to get it settled down. So he's available, and we'll see where we get it at selection.
In terms of where you are after 10, what are you becoming ingrained now? You were suggesting maybe it would take 9 weeks. I know you were just throwing a number out there, but what do you reckon is ingrained now? What is Adelaide today for what you've wanted to work with?
Oh, it's a good question. It's a work in progress, I guess. We continue to build on all the areas of our game, and we probably saw after the Bulldogs game and the Geelong game, there's some areas we need to tighten up on, and we've worked on those. And it's again early days, but what I'm appreciating now is this is a super even competition, and there are every team is difficult to play against, provides unique challenges, and we've got to continue to improve in all those areas, whether it's our ball movement, whether it's our team defence, whether it's work around the contest, because if you don't get them all right, or you don't keep improving in them, it's hard to be competitive long term against the best teams.
Is there something to read in your numbers about how high scoring you are, but you're still giving a fair bit at the back? Where are you on that balance?
Oh, we keep working on that balance. I think one of the strengths of our team, and again, it's me also understanding and getting to learn about our playing group and their capabilities and their strengths, and that's one of our strengths, is our ability to keep the scoreboard ticking over. Obviously, we want to keep that going without necessarily exposing the opposition scoreboard to ticking over as well. So that's a fine balancing act. But clearly, you don't want to take away from one of your strengths, which has kept us in a lot of games this year and won us a lot of games.
So what would make you more brutal on defence? What would make you known as a tighter defensive group?
What would make us more? Sorry,
Giving up almost, what is it, 94 at the moment? It's higher than the number you were aiming for.
yeah. So it's probably a goal or two a game higher. I think it's just to continue work on the things we're doing. I'm not sitting here going there's a magic change. I mean, the way we want to play requires different focus at different times, and we've shifted a little bit of focus onto some of our defensive actions, and we're continuing to improve in that area.
How beneficial is it to have these back-to-back home games just a couple of weeks before the bye?
Oh yeah, it's something obviously has been trialled. I'm assuming we get a couple of away games at some point in the future, so it'll sort of it'll even out.
What do you think about Josh Jenkins' idea of bonus points?
I'm not aware of Josh's idea of bonus points.
Okay, he wants bonus points if you score more than 100.
I haven't really got an opinion. I haven't thought about it, to be honest.
Is it an alluring thought that we try to encourage more scoring?
I think we're getting that without having to necessarily go with bonus points. I think there's the amount of changes in the game now. It'd be nice just to let the game settle and let us play and go from there.